Okay, hello, Mr. Toshio Suzuki, or should I say Suzuki-san. Welcome to the Tent Talks here in Tokyo. And thank you very much from the Berlin School, the academic side of the Berlin School, for a very interesting session that you gave us on Japanese animation. If I may, I'd like to begin with a question related to the film Spirited Away, because that's the one I think that people are most familiar with. I'd like to ask, how do you explain the phenomenal success of that particular movie?
Well, I still continue to wonder about the success of the film. I still recall vividly when Mr. Miyazaki asked me, how come this happened? And why is this so? These are interesting questions, but I don't have any answers. Perhaps it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and perhaps that's what life is all about. So, I'm very, very grateful.
It's an interesting movie in the sense that it kind of appeals to a kind of a cross generation, both the young and old. Is there anything specifically that you think that gives reason for that?
We're not interested in creating movies that speak to a certain age bracket or generation. We want to appeal to young people and older people. That's always been our philosophy, and we'll continue that approach in creating films in the future.
Okay. What would you say is specifically unique to Japanese animation when you look around the world at other styles and other approaches?
That's a very large and difficult question to answer. I think the biggest difference between animation in Japan and in other places is that most of the time in other countries, animation is for children. But perhaps Japan is unique because adults also find animation interesting here.
I see. How do you decide on what projects to pursue and perhaps what projects not to pursue at Ghibli?
In film creation and in production, there are two important aspects. The first is the consideration of what the viewers expect to see, what they want to see, what the trend is of the time, and what time we're in. The second aspect to consider is what is good, universally good. So fulfilling these two elements tells you what to go for, which decisions you need to make, and through this process you can avoid being confused. But that leads to the question, how are you going to formulate these two thoughts into a tangible thing? So that's the big thing. You're not puzzled in terms of making decisions. Decision making is easy.
So in a sense, it's looking to the trends, that are there in the area, let's say, and let's face it, good ideas are good ideas.
I think only looking at trends does not tell you what the audience and the customers are looking for. We do not know what they want to see. But one day, I don't know why, without any reason, it pops into your mind.
I'd like to shift my questioning a little bit now to creative leadership. At the Berlin School for Creative Leadership, we're looking at ways of turning great creatives into great creative leaders. And so I'd like to ask a couple of questions now about your position as chief producer and president at Ghibli, and your position as a creative leader. What would you say in your position are the key challenges that you face?
Creating good pieces of work, I think that's easy. You need to collaborate a lot closer with the directors. I think I'm pretty good at that. But whether I'm a good manager, being in a management position, I think I do a lousy job. Being creative while at the same time showing very strong leadership, doing both, is the ideal. But in a way, I think these roles conflict with each other. and contradict each other.
Yes, yes, I guess that's right. Okay, animation. My understanding of the animation business is it's the activity of developing animation is that it's a very kind of labor-intensive activity. And you mentioned during your presentation to the group how much time and effort it takes to put together such projects. And these projects are complex. My question here now is given that situation, is there anything that you have to do, and indeed how do you keep the people who are involved in these complex projects moving forward, committed to a project and moving forward to completion? Because as you said, sometimes, and for some animators, completing the task, completing the project is not so easy.
できれば一番いいんですけどね。だから僕なんかは映画を企画してね、作り始めはすごい楽しいんですよ。
That could be successfully done. That, of course, is the most ideal situation. The initial planning phases are the most exciting times. The first and second year are a lot of fun, but when it comes close to the due date, I feel a lot of pressures. For instance, how are you going to announce the film? How do I want to show it to the public? What will the marketing strategy be? When the staff observes this, it makes them want to work very strongly and efficiently.
仕事の能率が良くなる。そんなようなことが起きてるんだなっていう気がしてますけどね。
The crucial point is how fast Mr. Miyazaki will complete his story. In other words, as I said during my presentation to the Berlin School students today, he builds a story without foreseeing the conclusion. This is the majority of the creative work, and the speed at which he creates the story really affects the motivation of the people working around him. So I utilize this dynamic in a very skillful way to tell him if we do not work at a certain pace, we'll need to delay the launch date of the movie. And obviously, that's not something we want to do. This really focuses him on the completion of the story. And this, in turn, strongly motivates the team to do their work and fulfill their responsibilities. So the story building by Mr. Miyazaki is really the key to the entire situation.
結果として必然的にみんなも頑張ると。こういうことが多いですね。まずここの話です。
I'd like to finish with a final question. Actually, it's a question in two parts. What do you see as the future of animation in Japan, and what do you see for the future at Ghibli?
でどういうことかというと、
Obviously, the question here is the Hodo effect in Japan. It's a very difficult situation here in terms of animation. But perhaps of this Hodo effect, there's a lot of opportunity for young people to emerge, execute, and present their talents. So if one brilliant person were to come along and appear within the Japanese animation industry today, I think that would bring a whole change to the situation in which we currently stand. I have that expectation, and I think the same will apply to the Studio Ghibli. We will succeed only with a successor to Mr. Miyazaki. That is the big question.
もう一つ忘れてました。
And one more thing I've forgotten to say. That is the question, after I am gone, who will fulfill my role?
Okay. Mr. Toshio Suzuki, thank you very much. It was an honor for me, and thank you very much for giving us your time and your insights. Thank you very much.